Hello again, I'm Dr. Nicky Keay. I'm a medical doctor and I'm also a dancer, and I do a lot of exercise and sport as well. So today I want to talk to you about fueling for training and for performance. Last time we talked about the importance of fueling your hormones, because hormones, to remind you, are the drivers and determinants of your health and your performance. So you want to harness your hormones, and you definitely need to feed them appropriately. So the fundamental is to have 3 regular meals a day. In particular, breakfast is very important, which lots of people sometimes skimp a little bit on, or think it's a bit of a rush to do that, but actually it's time well spent. So 3 regular meals a day with good portions of protein and complex carbohydrates at each. What about additional nutrition requirements if you are training? So maybe it's easiest if we walk through a typical day. So in the morning, you will be getting up and having your breakfast like we discussed. Make sure that's got protein and complex carbohydrate. So for example, cereal with milk would be good because milk provides a very good source of protein. Yogurt, things like this, you might wish to choose. Oats as well is another possibility. So you've had your breakfast and then you're heading in to the studio or your training session to exercise. So that's great. You've got fuel in the tank. You do your class. In the break between your class, the first class and your next class or your next rehearsal, you will need to top up with fuel. You will need to top up with complex carbohydrate. So examples might be something like a banana, a cereal bar, dried fruit is another possibility. Fruit malt, so a type of bread with dried fruit in it, is particularly tasty. I like that. So you will need a little top up of the complex carbohydrate for your next class or rehearsal. Of course, as well, we should mention hydration. It can be really handy to have a bottle with some diluted fruit juice in. That is your homemade sports drink with some readily available glucose that you might need to top up. And also, depending on the weather, I also have a bottle with electrolyte tab in it if you are sweating a lot. So make sure you're also on top of the hydration. You then go into your second class having topped up with a banana or something like this. And then after you finish that class, hopefully you will then be able to have your lunch within 20 minutes of stopping. So it's very important to refuel within 20 minutes of stopping any form of exercise. And this could be your next meal, or as we're going to discuss later, it might have to be a specific recovery nutrition. And in that lunch, once again, you'll be looking to include both protein and complex carbohydrate. For example, my go-to is I have a salad, lots of lettuce and leaves with some form of protein like an egg, some tuna, smoked salmon. These are my personal favorites. And with that, I also have a good hunk of bread. So make sure you're covering all the main food groups there for your lunch. That is a light lunch, even if you're going to go on and do a class or exercise, other types of exercise, that won't be too heavy for you, hopefully. You then do another class or training session. And once again, between that and if you have another class, you will need to do that top up with the complex carbohydrate with your handy banana or your cereal bar. And then what sometimes is a problematic time is now you've finished all your training and your classes for the day, but there's definitely going to be a gap of several hours maybe before you get home and you have your dinner. So before you leave the studio, it's really important to have your recovery fuel there before you leave. And this could be something like a banana milkshake, because at this time in the recovery, you're looking, of course, for the complex carbohydrates. So the banana again comes into play, but also some protein. And milk is ideal for this because it's liquid, easy to digest, and it's got a particular type of protein in it called casein. So that would be an example. I think some people make the mistake of just focusing on the protein for the recovery, but you must include some carbohydrate because that will help replenish your glycogen stores, and it will stop the stress hormone cortisol increasing. Cortisol is an interesting hormone. It's important to give us our get up and go, but too much of a good thing. In other words, if you don't fuel appropriately for what you're trying to do, then the cortisol goes high, and this tends to dampen down all the other hormones and tends to favor the deposition of fat. So make sure you're having some recovery fuel at the end of your training day. And then we come to dinner, and dinner, once again, make sure you're including the complex carbohydrates and the protein, fruit and vegetables, as I mentioned earlier, as many as you want, because remember, your dinner is setting you up for the training the next day. So to summarize, you definitely need 3 regular meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you need to intersperse these meals with pre-exercise fuel. So in between 2 training sessions, complex carbohydrates, and definitely you must make sure or ensure as best you can that you are refueling within 20 minutes of stopping exercise with both protein and complex carbohydrate. If you do this in a consistent way over the day, you will avoid any mini energy deficits. Mini energy deficits are not good for your hormones. They increase cortisol, the stress response hormone, and they tend to decrease the sex steroid hormones like estrogen in women and testosterone in men. So hopefully that was helpful, gives you some practical examples of how to fuel your hormones for your optimal performance.